Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Running Portal. I'm Monica Rose, and with me today I have Kelly Force. Let's just talk about a small circle here, guys. As many as you know, I am here in Texas. I do run a lot of the trot races, and while my name was drawn for the Barclay Fall Classic for health and some other reasons, I pulled out of it. So I knew a couple of months ago that if I couldn't give you guys a fresh from my eyes view of what this course was, that I wanted to find someone or some people that had been out there. And through another trot ambassador, we have our guest today, which is Kelly Force. And not only did she go to the Barclay the first time and finish it, she took home a Crux for her birthday, which I think it's a pretty cool birthday gift. I think anybody that follows Laz does any of his races, we all kind of fan a bit with him. So, before we get too further along, Kelly, tell us a little bit about who you are and how long you've been in the running scene.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm a mom of two, 40 on my birthday. I actually earned the finisher's medal on my birthday, which was incredible. It was my birthday gift to myself. I've been a runner, gosh, since I was probably 12 or 13 years old, off and on, but much more seriously after my babies got big enough that they were a little bit more independent and just kind of reclaiming something for myself. And yes, heck of a small world. Trot was my first trail race back in 2021. It was the San Felipe shootout. And I was totally hooked. And I never went back. So it's just been building from there and finding more and more fun adventures to try.
Yeah, it's I always say that the trail community is big, but it's really not. Because we have social media, which is really cool. It links a lot of us together. People are ambassadors for different companies or their team members for so we connect that way. Or in this case, there were actually two of us that were supposed to go, and it just didn't work out that way. So I was excited when you had mentioned that used to be Texas, Kansas now holds her. It's the the Barclay Fall Classic, the Barclay Marathon itself, I think has always been a bit of a mystique. It requires a different type of training. There's there's the regular type of trail training that you would think of, but if you go to the chats, if you follow it along, it really requires you to get, I think, creative with the training. And because otherwise you show up and the word is immediately in your face. And then there's all the things that we've heard of, there's the rat jaw, there's the prison. And then there's a little bit more mystique with it, where with the marathon, no photos are allowed, no videos are allowed. And then I think what some people don't realize is with the Fall Classic, and just let me know if I'm wrong here, some of the rules that are over in the big dance are the same for the smaller one. In other words, it's a dumb watch. You can't use navigations. There's no cruise. There's no drop bags. Um, when I know my little nerd self was looking at where some people taking photos of the aid stations, it was water. That was water. That was it. So this was
Yeah.
very much like, hey, here we go. So what I know when you and I had talked the other day, you were like, this was something I felt I could do, so I threw my hat in it. But I loved that some people were super pre-planned with it, meaning that at least once they got out to that state park and made it kind of a trip and ran the trails, you took kind of the opposite of that, of where you wanted to embrace a little bit of that mystique, and I thought that was really cool because I think sometimes that for trails you can overtrain, and I know that y'all are thinking, you're a coach. Why are you saying overtraining? I really think sometimes you can overtrain, meaning you get a little in your head so that by the time you get out to race day, you're kind of, oh my gosh. And for a race like Laz's, especially this one, I think it could be very easy to get a little, and then a little too much in your head. So talk to us a little bit about like when you got that beautiful email that pretty much said, "Hey, moron, here we go," which I loved. I thought that was hilarious. And then were you immediately excited or were you like, "Oh, okay, so this is really real and am I going to do this?"
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the races I entered the longest before. I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants person because life is so busy. I mentioned I'm a mom, I have a job, a partner. My kids are so busy with their own activities. So our lifestyle is just not built around traveling around to races all the time. I can't put a race calendar together that includes trips to California and Colorado all the time. So if I put in for a race like this, it's just not in the cards to make multiple trips. You have to make do with whatever you have. And my 40th was coming up, and I said, you know what? Let's go big. I want to do an A race that's totally different than what I've done before and just see what happens. So I was lucky to get in on the lottery from the first go. And I knew that what it would require from my training is a level of, I'm going to use the word specificity that
Yes.
I did not have to do before. I have a great volume for a base and I do some speed work. I do a little dabble in hills. I like to be on the trails, but the specificity this race requires is something special. And I really felt like it was an opportunity to gain some skills, even here in Kansas, that I didn't have before. So I spent about 10 weeks working on that specificity and doing hill repeats on the back of the dam, getting poison ivy and chiggers. And doing a lot of road hill repeats so that I could just sprint down hills as fast as I could. Just all the things that you know you're going to encounter there and some other mountain races, but especially at Barclay.
So what was it like? So I understand that this year that the start was the the prison, and let me just so that we don't violate Laz's rules, and if you ever toss your hat back in here, we want to make sure you get another invite. So if you can't answer because it might violate one of the Laz's rules, just tell me, say, hey, that's a rule breaker, and we'll ask another one. So because I definitely don't want to do that. So what was it like? And let me just back up. Y'all didn't know the start until the day before, right?
We knew that it was going to be a prison start. That was
Okay.
published information. That's something that, I mean, they had all the race set up there at the prison. And we knew that was going to be different this year because they were doing some work over in Frozen Head. I don't know whether it was hurricane damage or remodeling or something, but the park was not available for use. So we knew from the beginning that it was going to be a prison start. And some runners had already joked about how that gave Laz a little bit of extra teeth because of the routes that he could draw having the prison start, which he'd never been able to do before. So a lot of runners, to your point, I think got in their own head that we're veterans of the course and were feeling like that this was going to be much more difficult than what they'd encountered before, which is probably true. But they had a level of mental block that I didn't have because I'd never even seen the course one time before. So I had no idea what I was in store for or how much more difficult it might be for me based on past year's performances. So I think it could have been a little benefit, especially when I got to that decision point where I made it well before the cutoff, but I didn't entirely know what difficulty lay ahead.
And for the cutoff, so for the fall classic, there are different points of the cutoff, but there is a hard cutoff where you I think for a lot of people the immediate goal is make that marathon mark And then, as Laz himself has said in different posts and stuff, you have a decision to make. You can take your prize, as he calls it, and call it a day. Or you can decide to throw all your chips in and push forward. So, how were you feeling when you got to the marathon mark? Was it easily out there that y'all knew, hey, this is the marathon mark? Or were you kind of relying on other people that were more familiar with it to understand? Because you don't have a tracker, there's no mile markers out there to let you know, hey, you're you're at the mile, you're at the marathon mark. So what was it like when you got to that point of the course? And then let me back it up a little bit, just so that people that are looking at this race, maybe never heard of this race, what was a little bit of it like with a prison start getting to that marathon mark? Because I think those that have done mountain races understand that 10 miles is a heck of a lot different on a mountain than 10 miles on normal trail. So give us a little bit of a window going into the marathon mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brushy State Penitentiary is inside of a literal hole. And they used to refer to the mountains around it as the third wall because it was like another wall of the prison. It's straight up and down, it's overgrown with lots of trees and underbrush and those famous sawbriars that tear everyone's legs up. So, having a prison start, the first thing that you do in any direction is climb, and you climb for a long way and in a lot of brush. So, that was a kind of fun experience to do with 405 others before we even really got spread out. And there was a little bit of a conga line going on. So, immediately going in, with only your little Timex, you're losing track of how many miles you've actually covered or done. So once you get done with that first climb, there is quite a bit of runnable trail. And the night before, I got handed the map with my packet pickup, and the map is printed on a piece of cloth and it was all rolled
So
up
fast.
and bound with a piece of twine. And I don't know about you guys, you're old enough to know this film, but I immediately felt like I was in the Goonies.
Oh my gosh,
And
yes. That
I
is
just,
so Aprios. Yes.
oh my gosh, I unwrapped it and everybody's pouring over this map together. The veterans are surrounded by all of the newbies pointing out different marks and trying to figure out, okay, what has he done this year? Which route are we taking? We're going to do this first and then this. But when you do get to the decision point, and just for those who don't know what that is, you kind of described it. Laz himself allows you to finish what he calls, quote, the marathon. And you can podium and get a separate award for doing that. Or you have to forego all of that in order to do this last little bit that is always the most challenging part of the entire race. And most people, I think, get in their own head at that point, whether or not they have time or not, whether or not they've got um, the actual minutes to spare. It is a really difficult pill to swallow to go basically back through what you've already done, that you've already tasted. And it's the hottest part of the day usually. But again, that part wasn't difficult to navigate because Laz himself is there. That's where most people were kind of setting up camp, and of course the marathon finish is right there. So you're not lost at that point, maybe mentally lost, but physically everybody's present. And Laz gives his little Laz smile and he says, you could have second place in the marathon, Kelly, if you just quit now. And I told him, no way, I have marathon medals, I don't want a marathon medal, I want the full chili, punch my bib. And he just loves that. He loves those people who are willing to dig a little bit deeper inside themselves. Whether or not I finished didn't matter. I just wanted to try. And that was just such a fun experience the whole time. Every step of the way, every little difficult place, I just felt blessed to get to do something so amazing.
So give us so what did your word spell on your bib? And let me explain to people real quick. So there are certain points in the Fall Classic where you have to get your bib punched. If you don't, sorry. So make sure you don't miss a punch. So what was your word when it was spelt out? Did you figure it out?
Yes, it was the map said this year it is waiting. And if you finish the marathon, it says, I was the loser. If you get that last punch way out there on the other side of that little extra that you've just been fighting to reach, the last punch was a T and it said it was the loser. And that was kind of fun that he turned it on its head like that. So, yeah, every year it'll spell something different, and you have to go get those punches at different places, and they're not always by the aid stations or wherever. So, you have to be really aware of what's going on to make sure you miss some. And unfortunately, a few runners did miss one or two of those punches this year, which is just so heartbreaking because they work so hard for it. But that's an element that Laz adds to his race is you don't just run with no thought in your head. You are really working your mind the whole time.
And I think that's like for you've got two types of people when it comes to a Laz race. You either appreciate and respect what he's created, or in your mind, it's just ridiculous and why does it need to be that level? But I think if you look behind what he does, it's a great reminder for trail runners to get back to the base of running and not rely so much on all the, your heart and your O2 stat and, your now you got to run and then you're watching. No, no, now you're walking and you're running, and it really strips you down to being that runner again. And when you think about like the Barclay Marathon, when that was created, they didn't have all of this fancy stuff back then. They just went. They went and did the thing. And I know that for people that were chosen this year, we all saw the amount of finishers last year. And so we saw it in the chats for the Fall Classic. I think anybody that had their name drawn knew that this was going to be a more challenging year because there were so many finishers last year. So did you feel that when you got your map and everything the night before? What was kind of the vibe the morning of? What was that like?
That's a great question. I typically am a pretty anxious racer. It's why I don't do a lot of it. I think we talked about that before, actually. I was really nervous when I started running seriously again about racing. And my husband really encouraged me to put my name in the hat for several races because I was running so many miles. And he's like, You're awesome. You need to go and have some fun with this. But this one, I really felt a sense of peace and acceptance of whatever happened on this day. I was just going to enjoy the day. It was my birthday. I was so grateful to be there. Everyone was amazing. And if I might share this little personal side of the story that's non-running related, but the little community there in Tennessee is incredible. And I ended up staying at this little brewery. I had to go by myself. My husband had to watch the kids. So I show up all by my lonesome at this little brewery in campground, and it's called the Lily Pad Hop Yard and Brewery. So if any of your listeners go to Tennessee for this race, look up Dell and Marta at the Lily Pad Brewery, and they
Okay.
made me like one of their family. I
Oh,
showed up and they gave me a hug, and they brought out the book of photos from when their daughter had done it in like 2018 or 2019. They called her up on the phone to give me all the tips, and they stayed up past closing with me and swapping stories, and they fed me. And this part, like, it actually makes me a little bit teary because this is the kind of people that I love about trail running. I got home that night after the race. I am muddy from head to toe. I'm bloody everywhere. I stink so bad. And Dell and Marta and some of their regulars stayed past hours to give me a hug and congratulate me. I was like their family that weekend, and that is so special. So I was in this environment where I felt very safe and welcome and encouraged. There was not a crossword, there was not anything other than positive vibes, not just at the brewery, but at the race too. All the veterans are working together with all the newbies. Everybody is working together, hands out. We're blazing trails together, literally whacking weeds and small trees down and kind of taking one for the team because the people up there at the front are really doing a lot of work and wasting some energy doing so. So there was just a really cool vibe about that place and about trail running in general, um, that you just can't get in a road race. I think that's how my perception has been of it anyway. So yeah, there is just this deep sense of I'm ready for whatever is going to happen and I'm going to enjoy the people and the woods today.
I love hearing that because I've read that about the communities that are there in Tennessee, regardless of which last race that you're doing. When I've spoken with other participants from his races, they've all said that the people of Tennessee are so welcoming and so awesome that you know even if you show up by yourself, by the time you leave, you feel like you have this new family that you didn't have when you landed. And I know for females, when we travel alone out of state, it can be a little bit intimidating sometimes because we're not quite sure, but I've heard your story and several other from females who've arrived at one of Lass's races, and they not once did they ever feel unwelcome, unsafe. They had the best time. And I think when you're welcome like that, it really does help to settle you a bit when you go to start the race. And then in reading the comments from the other people that were out there, there were a handful where, like you, they just were so grateful to get to enjoy the experience, to be out there, to meet him. I know that you had mentioned that was something that you were looking forward to, was to be able to meet him. Um, because I know like people probably think he's like this scary, mean person. But in interviews I've seen of him and people that have met him personally, they're like, he really is just the sweetest individual, but he also challenges you too at the same breath. And I can't imagine you've got two mindsets, right? So I can let you finish right here and you're gonna be number two, and then it's all done. Or I can punch your bib and you can go have some more fun that I've got for you guys. Was there even like the tiniest bit of a doubt, or was your brain already programmed? We're just going again. Here we go.
I was already out there. I never doubted that I was going to go. And I knew that I could move my body for the entire time. So the worst thing that happened to me is that I timed out somewhere on the course.
Yeah.
And that was okay with me. Like I said, I came in with this just deep sense of acceptance that I was going to do my best, and whatever my best left me with that day was going to be what I was proud of. And I really worked very hard on my training block. And so there was this confidence too, not in it, I'm not a super fast runner or anything like that, but I just felt very confident that I'd put in the work. The work was going to help me get through this day. And the worst thing that happened is that at 13 hours and 20 minutes, I just didn't quite make it to the finish line. But with everybody's help and a lot of fighting the course and fighting the last little time cutoff, I was able to make it with 13 minutes to spare. And like you, afterwards, I went through and looked at a little bit of the statistics, and I was just kind of blown away with the stark contrast this year compared to the last previous years. I think in 2024, there were 94 finishers of the 50K, the full
Yes.
course at Barclay Fall Classic,
Yes.
compared to 20 this year. So already that's a very stark difference. But then if you also look at the top finisher, who this year is a professional athlete who has won UTMB, so very, very talented person. He finished over 1 hour slower as the winner than the winner in 2024, who was very talented, but not a professional athlete. So that just kind of frames up what kind of course that Laz handed us this year. He really, really upped the ante a little bit, um, more than I think people were expecting. And of course, there were only two females who finished, myself and one other. Demi and I traded places several times throughout the day. And I know that it can be really difficult not to feel a sense of competition between each other because we were fighting for the top spot. But I just want to give her a shout out. She was never anything but the most positive, buoyant force. And she would pass me and say, I'll see you again in a few minutes. And we got to get to this next cutoff, girl. It's you and me. She was such a team player, and I enjoyed being out on the course with her. And I am so excited to see what she does on the start line of the big Barclay come this spring.
I know that in some of the interviews that Laz has done, he has mentioned about hoping to see some particular names figure out the process of applying. Because it's not straightforward. It is secret. You know people that have done it, so you can talk to those people, but then you still only get so far because if you don't finish it, you want to go back. So you don't want to get in trouble. You don't you want to be able to you want to be able to go back and finish. So that would be really cool to see her figure out the application process and put her in because if I mean if you think about it, it's not only was it only 20, but of the 20, there are two women. And I know, and like I said, in interviews that Laz has done, I'm sure that he's watching both of y'all because he gave a much more difficult course purposely. And I feel like the big dance next year, it's not going to be easier. I think he made it more difficult to break down that teamwork that we saw happen in 24 that allowed so many finishers. I think he wanted to break that up pretty quick. So I think that it's it's awesome to see women finishing stronger and higher up. I think it shows and opens the door for other women to be more confident if they're lacking some confidence. And then in speaking of women, what do your children think of mom going on these adventures and then seeing these photos and stuff? What do your kids think of this?
Oh gosh, you need to answer this one too, because I'm sure that it's going to be interesting. So, on the one hand, I think they are desensitized in some way to the number of miles that I run. I'll come home from a run and they'll say, how many miles did you do, mom? Oh, I did 20 or, whatever today. And they just say, oh, and move on with their day. And that's a level of normal for them that not many families experience. But I like that. I like that being active and doing something like that is normal in their life. But as far as these races go, I know they're super proud of me. I don't think they have expectations that I'm going to win, but you can tell in both of them that mom's not afraid to try. Like she's just going to go send it. And it could turn out great or it could turn out awful. But I think both of them are super proud that mom's just gonna put her name in and we're gonna find out what happens. My son is 14, he's a freshman. So he has a lot of other interests besides mom these days, which is totally normal and fine. But he was doing a project at school, and one of the projects included talking about your heroes. And he went to my husband and he asked for a photo of his mom. And that was just like probably the best moment I've had in a while with my teen, because you get fewer and fewer of those
Oh,
at
yes.
that age. So I know that, as nonchalant as he might be, that both of them are seeing this happen. And I hope that someday in their lives that it encourages them to do the same thing.
And I think that's cool because it kids need to see parents trying. They need to see them go for something that's a little bit out of reach, be unafraid to do it, so that in turn that they will do it. And I think it's super cool. My kids are all adults now, but I think it's super cool that your teen son is like, I have a hero.
Yeah.
And she starts with the letter M, and I live with her, and I think that is so cool. And I think that's a testament to who you are as a parent, that you're, because he could have picked anybody, and
Yes. I mean,
it
he could
was
have
mom.
picked Travis Kelce or, Patrick Mahomes, which is what many, and there's nothing wrong with that. Many,
No.
many, and it's not to, that doesn't lessen any other mother's experience, because we all know what it's like to parent a teenager.
Oh,
But
yes.
I just loved that moment in him where he could have picked somebody way cooler than mom, but I was on his mind, and that was really special to me. And that, at the end of the day, that it isn't that I'm his hero, it's that he sees a normal working person in his home putting their best foot forward out there and trying their anything that catches their fancy and just going for it. And that's what I want for their lives, is not being afraid to do the hard things.
And I think that's another beautiful thing that I'm starting to see with some of the race directors here in Texas. I'll just speak to Texas because I don't know about the out of state ones, where they've got this fun, free, 1 mile run for kids to do. And I think it's cool that we're working on getting not just an individual, but families out to the trails so that they feel part of it. I had our community run yesterday out at the state park. And there's a new group, the Latino community, or I don't know, it's a brand new group. But I talked with the guy for a little bit, and it's so cool. Their sole mission, they meet once a month, and their sole mission is to get families outside, get families to the trails, get families moving. And it's just another testament to the trail community and the different ways that it impacts individuals, it impacts families. And it just kind of has this beautiful ripple effect. And my love being running, I told him, I was like, look, if any in your group ever want to walk, if ever want to run, and we're out here, I was like, they are free to come and crash. I was like, we would love to have them out there. And speaking of families, because I know, like, if my husband was sitting here, I told him of the first one I was doing. I didn't look at the time. I didn't realize it was a high noon start. So, like, my road run, I was just thinking it's a 7 a.m. No, it was a high noon start. But I think if he was sitting here, he would probably say, I thought she was going to do one, maybe two. Did your husband think that you would still be running them?
Oh gosh, I like, God bless him. he he puts up with every harebrained idea. And you first become aware of trail running and you don't even realize this whole world is out there. I mean, you turn over one little rock and then you turn
Yes.
over the next one and the next one and the next one, and you realize that there's this whole huge world out there. So when we started, neither one of us really had more than just a vague understanding of what the trail racing community was. Like, we knew Western states existed, but it didn't have any real meaning or form to us. So the first time that I suggested an ultra, it was also in Texas. I think it was Tinahas out at the Colorado. It was a 50K out there. Um, but yeah, it's just, hey, what about if we do this thing? And now every time I open my mouth like that, he's like, what? What is it? Well, I'm so lucky because I do have a partner that even if he doesn't totally understand why I have these crazy things I want to do, he is my biggest fan. And that's another really special thing as a family that I love is that my kids are seeing a relationship where we support each other, where my husband is like, yes, I'm so proud of you. Go do this thing. I got it at home. We're going to make signs for you when we're done. We're going to FaceTime you and we're going to be your biggest cheerleaders. And that's a really awesome thing that we have in our family is we're all each other's best cheerleaders, even if we don't understand what we're even cheering for sometimes.
I think that's so like so special. So my husband, between us, we have four kids. He has a daughter, I have three. We have two grandbabies, his daughter and mine. Um, and there's trails and then there's ultras, and I haven't ever met one person that was like, I'm just gonna do one. Like you said, I loved your analogy. It's like you turn over this leaf and you turn over this rock, and then you just discover how big and vast that it is. And I know, like, because of him, he'll hang with Doug because my son has special needs, so I can go get my training run done or go do the community run out there with people. And then sometimes some of these races, like there's one in February. I'm up for the 72 hours. And he was like,
Oh, wow. 72
70,
hours.
he's like 72 hours. He's like, babe, that so
Yeah, those people are so special. And every time I talk about ultra running, there isn't any part of the conversation ever that's not in my mind. I would not do what I do if I didn't have the partner that I had. If I didn't have full support at home, it would not be possible to put in this amount of hours to the training. My mind couldn't focus on it. There are days that we don't want to do it, that we feel bad. And those are the days that I'm most grateful because my partner's like, look, I'll drive you to the gym. We'll just do I'll do something with you. And he doesn't run any kind of like the miles that I run, but he will always push me forward, even when I'm not feeling it. We cannot do this without our families.
oh, absolutely, for sure. That speaking of families, that's another beautiful thing of the Barclay is that people walk away with these new families, these new friendships. Of the course, was there any part that surprised you that was because going in it, we know it's going to be hard, right? It's kind of like, okay, what level? Like,
Yeah.
where is it going to fall? Is it going to fall from, is it going to fall a five or is it going to fall a 10 plus? I don't think that the Barclay has anything from like one to five. I think those numbers are just gone. So, was there a part out there where you're like, oh, wasn't quite expecting this? And then is rat jaw as bad as the pictures that we see? Because I know there's people listening going, look, I've seen the photos of rat jaw, I've seen the legs, I've seen the aftermath. Is that one as bad as what they say?
Yes. I think anybody who's been out there will just say yes. It's that intense. And it is so steep where you're bear crawling and briars are tearing your hair off your out of your ponytail and they're tearing at your shirt and they're tearing at your pants and your socks. Everything I owned was ruined. But I wouldn't say that was unexpected. I did my homework. I knew that that was coming. We all know it's coming. I don't think anything prepares you for tolerating those little scratches and pulls, it definitely plays with your psyche that you just have to accept that you're gonna bleed. And we live in a society where we don't push ourselves to that level ever. It's a very comfortable environment we live in. And as soon as you get a scratch, you put a band-aid on it. And this is completely the opposite of that. So you kind of just have to put your mind in that place of being comfortable with the uncomfortable, if that makes any sense. And your mind just goes there, or at least mine did. And I didn't think about half of what was going on until I was finished. And then I'm realizing, oh, my pants are ripped on the butt, and I have a giant bruise there where something poked me right in it. And I've got blood all over my arms and my legs. And I remember vaguely it hurt, but not like this. And you take the shower and you wash off the mud, and you just kind of are amazed at yourself. I went through this and I'm okay, but I look awful.
What I can imagine, like, when my kids being adults probably wouldn't have reacted too bad other than, wow, okay, mom. But like my younger nephews, I can only imagine what their face would be if they saw Aunt Monica with like, I could already see their faces like trying to process and be like, what were your kids like and your husband when you came home and you were like, mom goes out the door, one woman, and she comes through the door looking a little worn. What was their reaction when they saw you when you came home?
It's just I have my daughter's 11. She's almost 12. So she's in that wonderful sassy teenage
Oh,
or
yes.
tween. She's got the tween attitude. And she sees me for the first time and she's like, "Mom, why do you do that to yourself?" But at the same time, I know that she's proud that mom's super tough because I've overheard her on her little messages on her phone telling her friends that, yeah, and my mom, she came home and she had scratches everywhere. Could you believe that? So there's this a little bit of an awe and not total understanding, but definitely like, wow, mom is tough.
We're not gonna make mom mad. So,
They do ask me if I get cranky with them. They say, "Mom, have you gone for a run yet
oh,
today?"
nice. Love it.
Yeah, they know that ratchets down mom's attitude, that I get a little bit calmer after that run.
That is so funny. So, two questions. Are you going to put your hat in for the Fall Classic again? And do you ever see yourself figuring out the path to put in the application for the big dance?
I never thought I'd be asked that question, but I've been asked it a lot in the 1 week since I finished. And I think the classic, yes, that was a blast. It was so much fun. I'd come back every year if I could. I don't know, always know if that will fit in our schedule, but when the lottery becomes open, I don't have any question about whether or not I'd want to do that race again. The big Barclay is a different beast entirely. Um, there's some orienteering skills that I would need to develop if I ever wanted to put my name in for that. And then Laz himself has said it's supposed to be a secret, but he still gets almost 3,000 applications every year.
Oh,
So
wow.
people are figuring it out, and there's only 40 spots. So even if I got all the way into finding out what the application process is, even if I had some pretty nice finishes at Barclay Fall Classic, it would still be very difficult for someone who is not extremely exceptional as a runner to get into. I think some people try for years to get in. So if I ever got the call, like, "Hey, moron, you want to come run?" I would say yes. I just know that, or I'm a realist in the sense that that's going to be a long road to find a path there.
Yeah, it's a I don't think people realize that like with the big dance you mentioned the orientation. like there's no markers. You have a compass, and it's very easy to get turned around out there. I know, like, there's a fantastic documentary with Jasmine, and she talks about how at once she just laid down. She's like, I was so exhausted, I was cold, I was so tired. Um, and but all anybody that's done that, they talk about having, they just go get lost and then they try to figure their way back out because um it can be, it's easy to get turned around. And then we all know from trail running, it's so crazy. Tell me if I'm wrong. You can run a loop course and you know it by heart, but the minute that the sun goes full dark, your brain is like, wait, we haven't gone through here before. You're not going the right way. And you're like, no, 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 no. We know exactly where we're going. We know what we're doing. So I I can't imagine doing a race that's as difficult as Laz's race is. And then you have that element where you're trying not to get lost and you don't want to get confused. So, Kelly, I know that this has been so fun for me. And I have just a few more questions. And what would be your best advice for somebody that's looking at doing this race? If you had a top three that you might give them if they're looking at this race, they've got some experience underneath them, what would be your top three for them to consider before throwing their hat in?
Um, my number one is stop considering. Do it just there's some element of you got to have some guts and just believe in yourself. Choose that. And then be ready to do the work. And the work is going to look like a lot of hill repeats and a lot of running when you're fatigued and feeling a little bit slow during that training block because you're working on those hills and they slow you down. And then three is just be ready to be flexible on the day and take what comes at you because things are going to change rapidly out on that course. You never know what you're going to find. And that is exciting to me, but I know that that is a really difficult element of the course is unmarked turns and conga line at rut jaw and then the water ran out at this aid station or whatever it is, just be ready for anything. And that truly is the spirit of the race is be ready for anything.
I absolutely, absolutely love that. What is, do you have a next race in mind, or are you keeping yourself kind of open for some options here?
I'm open, but I am signed up for a 100-mile race here in Kansas on a USATF certified course. So I'm 40, which means I am officially a master's runner. And I found out that there is such a thing as state record lists. And so I have my eye on making it on that master's record list at some point. And I don't know what your listeners are familiar with, but you have to run that on a certified USATF certified course. So it's a really
Right.
boring, flat course. It's not where my heart is. My heart is in the mountains. But I'm going to do that one. And then who knows from there? I definitely will be back to Tennessee and I would love to be back to the mountains this year. I was gifted the opportunity to pace out at Western States.
Oh,
So
nice.
I did 45 miles out there, and now my heart is being pulled to Auburn. So maybe I'll punch a Western States ticket. We'll see.
Yeah, the Western states, it's so funny. Some people try for years to get in before they're finally in, and then other people get in like right off the bat. It's really funny how that lotto system works, but um I know that some of the bigger races I was hoping to be able to help and pace, but the body just needed to heal. So and then the last question, if somebody is unsure about coming into the trail community, whether it's a 5K trail race or a 100-mile trail race, what would you say to them?
I'd say the same thing. There is never a more welcoming community out there than the trail running community. And there is a place for everyone. And no matter whether you have a walking pace or a sprint pace, it doesn't matter. It's for everyone. And there isn't anything better you can do with your body than move it. And doing it out on nature is this added bonus. I don't think anyone I know who's ever done a trail race has regretted it in any kind of way. So there's no day like today. I'm not getting any younger. You're not getting any younger. This is a Laz quote. So I'll leave you with this. He
Okay.
says, he has a new book out. I'll give him a little plug for that. It's called The Endurance Artist. And in an interview, he said, all biographies end the same way. So, what do you want to have between the pages? And that really stuck with me. And so, we're just here for a certain amount of time. And so there's no time like the present to try something that we're thinking about doing.
That is absolutely the best way to end this interview. This has been so, so fun. And I truly appreciate you slowing down your world a bit, jumping on here and having a conversation with me. We will definitely be watching you and seeing what else you get up to out there in the trail community. Thank you again for slowing down and talking with us.
Thank you, Monica. I'm honored to be invited.